First, we need to talk about whether America is staring down its last days and why we need to be paying close attention to what's happening in Europe so that we don't fall into the same trap. Next, I want to then explore something that may sound crazy and controversial to some of you. Could it be that Satanism, yes, demonic forces have actually captured our congressmen? Could that be the reason why we've been experiencing some of what we've been experiencing? Or maybe that's just a conspiracy theory. We are going to dig into that. After that, I want to take you back and revisit what Barack Obama had to actually say about immigration during his administration. You may be surprised. And more than that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk to you, and I'm going to address all of you people who are nagging and asking me why I talk so much about Candace Owens. I want to tell you why it seems as though I may be obsessed with her. I'm going to answer all of that and more. This podcast you do not want to miss. I'm asking you to watch it until the very end. Trust me, I guaranteed you, you are going to get value out of what I share with you today. There will be absolutely no fluff. You are going to get a perspective that you'll probably never get from anybody else on any other podcast. Roll the intro. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Nissim Black Show. Do you really think, if you were to put yourself in their shoes, that you'd be worried about who the politician, what side they're on? It just does not work that way. I'm Nissim Black, Israeli-American Black Hasidic Jewish rapper turned podcaster. This is the Nissim Black Show, where prophecy meets politics, faith collides with culture, and we search for truth in a world on fire. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Nissim Black Show. So much to get through today. I want to share with you guys a story. And that story was told by Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, who lived in the Ukraine. He died in the year 1810. He was one of the Hasidic masters, and he was one of the most brilliant minds of his time. And I would say that arguably, at least, that he is also in our generations. His teachings live on. He told a story, a parable of two individuals who were working in a wheat field. Now, I may have told this story before, but in context, we have to look at this story again because it's very, very important. There were two men. They're working in a wheat field. And as they're going about in this wheat field, they start to notice that whoever partakes of this wheat, this particular wheat that they're in, this wheat field, they all become crazy. And then they start to notice the whole entire world, the populated world of that time was eating from that wheat. And so one looks at the other and he says that if we don't eat this wheat, then they are going to think, the world's going to think that we are crazy. And so the other one looks at him and he says, he has a solution. Why don't we both take this wheat, right? We'll eat it. But first, we're going to make a sign on our forehead. And that sign that's on our forehead will serve to let us know that we are crazy. So at least as we eat of this wheat, we'll be able to look at one another and know that we are crazy. The reason why I tell you this story, ladies and gentlemen, is because we got issues. We crazy. And we all have to be a little bit crazy in this generation. Why? Because the world has gone crazy. It literally has. We are literally living in the time that the prophet Isaiah had foreseen, and he was also speaking about in his generation during the time of the destruction of Jerusalem and the upper 10 tribes that were being taken right before the exile of the lower tribes of Judah. Right before that happened, he realized that what was the problem during that time is that evil was called good and good is called evil, and so will it be at the end of time. We are living in that time. We're living in that time. Listen, and the reason why I say we all have to be a little crazy, I'm going to give you an example. If you go to a bathroom right now and in a public place that says all gender, now we're not crazy enough to think that there are more than two genders. What you mean all? You can say both, but you say all genders, right? And so a person's not going to not use that bathroom. They're going to go use the bathroom. You may laugh on the way in, but you're not going to stop. Like in the world of truth, we would stop what we're doing. And we will go to whoever the owner is or whoever's in charge and tell them, fix that. Fix that. It's wrong, right? But we don't do that, right? We have to partake of this sweet online. There's so much, licentiousness. There's debauchery. There's things that grab a person and fans his desires online. There are things that overly desensitize people to what they should be, right? We should be sensitive when we see horrific things happen. But because online, these things are just readily available, people unfortunately become desensitized. So they eat of that wheat because they have to use the internet for whatever it is that they have to use it for. And so therefore they find themselves in this world of craziness, but hoping that the sign on their forehead, which is really the illumination of God, which is really godly thinking, and hopefully something of a person being grounded. It's a very deep concept. I won't get into all of it right now, but the illumination of the God's name, his tetragrammaton, being on your head, being enlightened by God and his word and his presence, his truth. Hopefully that will serve to remind you that you are in a crazy world. And because of that, you're crazy. We had to partake of that wheat. And one of the other reasons that we know the world is backwards is because, just look at it. I was thinking about this the other day. 2020, leading up to the 2020 election, we saw so many conservatives be deplatformed for just speaking the truth, right? Nothing violent, anything like that, but just happened to be telling the truth. We knew there was obviously an agenda behind that. But all the while, people like, the Ayatollah can call for the death of America and call for the death of Israel on the same exact platform, and he didn't even get I don't think he got a strike. Nothing. This is what I'm talking about, a world that is completely backwards, ladies and gentlemen. I present to you right now, I want to get into this, Muhammad Hijab, who just recently went bankrupt, and I think one of the reasons why he went bankrupt is because he's morally bankrupt. He's spiritually bankrupt. The man has lost his mind. He needs, I don't know if he ever had one, but he is going to give this speech. I think it's in London, somewhere in Europe. I believe it's London, where he resides, I believe. And you're going to hear him speak to his truth, right? This craziness that the Europeans are allowing to happen underneath their nose. And do not think it's just Europe, because in the U.S., trust me, these conversations are happening all the time, whether being publicized or not. But I want you to see this, and then we're going to discuss it. Roll clip 2.
Our numbers are massive. There's 50 million Muslims in Europe. There's more Muslims in Europe than there are in some Muslim majority countries. If all the Muslims in Europe were one country, it would be one of the biggest Muslim countries in the world. That's the truth. If all the Muslims in Europe were one country, it would be in the top 10 or top 15 biggest Muslim countries in the world. It would be a big country. We're a big people. So that means we need to start acting like the Muslim community have to become the consequence. Make them think, okay, well, if we mess around with this community, what's going to happen? We have to start acting as if we have the upper hand, because we do. وَكَلِمَةُ اللَّهِ هِيَ الْعُلْيَا, as the Quran says. The word of Allah, it's high. The reason why the Salaf, the early generations, were so successful in spreading Islam across the world was because they had this immense amount of courage backed by this immense amount of tawakkul, which means reliance on Allah. You realize that, look, I'm doing this for the sake of Allah, and it is what it is. Whatever happens, happens. Concept of martyrdom, then I would consider that to be an advantage, frankly. The one who's willing to commit suicide has the initiative.
Well, you can hear it from the horse's mouth yourself. You can hear it from the, and that's, oh my goodness, this is so telling that this is happening underneath your nose. But you know what? This is a judgment, ladies and gentlemen, and I want that Americans are going to pay attention to this. Pay attention to this very, very closely, because we're learning a lesson from Europe. Europe, for many years, had a Jew problem. That's what it was. And what I'm telling you right now, and I've spoken about this before, but I think it needs to be said, and this is something that can, honestly, it can continue being said, is that, you know what, you traded your Semite issue for Semites. As a have, you got rid of one group of Semites, and then guess what happened? It just happens to be that you brought in the others. More hostile, more aggressive, right? More daring. And the problem with it is that Europe, after all of that, did not learn its lesson. And this, as we've been talking about a lot, is the beginning of the falling of the West. Now, listen, America is doing your masterclass, Europe. It's called ICE. Get the people out. I don't care. It's like you. At some point, you have to be done with being overly compensating people. That is not a godly trait. We have talked about it before. I think we just spoke about it yesterday. Misplaced mercy will get you in trouble. And that's what's happened. And that's how you get guys like this that can say whatever they want to say right there in front of you. That's what they will do. And if this can happen, right now in Europe, in the West, you have to believe we are already at that place. And this is what happened when God is rejected and neglected. This is what happens when people move away from religion and they move into the morality of what I feel is correct and what I think is okay. And this is what happened. You virtue signal, and then you end up letting in your enemies. And that's what happened. And like I said, Europe, because of what it did to the Jews, I'm in firm belief that this is a judgment upon their head from Almighty God. Absolutely. This is, I want to tell you guys a story. There was years ago, I used to host a lot of times, how do I say yeshiva bachas? There were students. There are American students who come to learn in the religious Jewish institutions here in Israel, known as yeshivas, right? They come and they sit, religious studies, and there's a lot of English-speaking boys that when I used to live in Jerusalem, right in the middle of, like, pretty much near the center of more of the religious area I lived, I used to host about maybe 30 to 40 boys every single week, Friday night, for the Friday night Sabbath meal. And we would have very long meals. They would end at maybe 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I would speak a lot and talk to the boys and encourage them, and we'd have a good time. We'd sing all night. If you've never been to a Sabbath meal, I suggest you go to one because it will literally change your life if you have the opportunity to. Anyway, so I realized, for me having all of these boys over time, how to shop, right? So I used to have to go and fill up shopping carts that were serious, because some of these guys will go back for seconds before the first person, or thirds before the first person will ever get there first, right? They're already on plate number 3. So I used to have to make sure I had a lot of food. So I would go to the supermarket and I would fill up with 2. And this is before, I thought I could, go on public transportation and do this. So just, throw that out there. I've learned my lesson. Anyway, so there was one particular night I went out and I had so much food. I had 2 shopping carts on my own. And I went to go and fill up these shopping carts with food. And as I filled them up with food, I started to notice that this is a very big task. It's not going to be easy for me to get, a taxi and leave out of here very easily. So I had already made up in my mind as I was shopping, I'm going to get 2 taxis. You're about to learn a lesson about the Middle East, okay? So after I fill up the shopping carts, we got all the bags, everything else. And part of the issue here is that you have to bag your own groceries. I know that sounds crazy, but you're bagging your own groceries. But when you have that many, you get some help. So I bag up all these groceries. I finally go outside, and there's these little stalls outside that you can sit the basket in so you could wave down a taxi. Very thoughtful, right? So I already have in my head, I need 2 taxis. I need one that I'm going to go with 1 basket full of groceries. And the other basket full of groceries, I'm just going to put in the back of another trunk. I'm going to send it ahead, and I'll meet the driver there and take care of everything that way. So I've already had that in my mind. Finally, I get 1 taxi. He drives up, not such a big car. He pulls up there, and I start putting the bags, inside of his trunk. And then I made the mistake of telling him that I'm going to also order another taxi. And inside that taxi, I'll put more groceries, and then we'll just go and meet him. So I go to the back and I try to stop another taxi, and the taxi driver says over to me, he says, why do you need another taxi? We can fit everything in my trunk. And I'm looking at his trunk and I see how the size of the car, and I'm like, there's no way I can fit 2 massive, shopping carts into this guy's trunk. So he's looking at me, I'm looking at him, and I'm saying there's no room. And he's saying there is room, right? So in Hebrew, he's saying yesh makom. I'm saying ein makom. That's how you say there is room, there is no room. So he's going yesh makom. I'm going ein makom. There's room, there's no room, there's no room. We're going back and forth. And all the while, I'm trying to wave down another taxi. So finally, I get a taxi to stop, and I turn back around, and all of my groceries have been completely stuffed and mangled inside the back of this guy's taxi. And as he's pushing everything in, he finally slams it and looks at me and says, there's room. I told you. So I look at him. I let the other taxi go, say sorry. I get into the car, and on the way home, he breaks the news to me. He says, since you told me you were getting 2 taxis, you have to pay me the price of 2 taxis. So this is our next argument on the way back to the apartment. Anybody who's ever been to Israel or anywhere in the Middle East, you know what I'm dealing with here now. So we're going back and forth. And finally, because I am American at my heart, I do not want to go back and forth. I pay the guy the price of 2 taxis. And you know what? He didn't even help me get them to the elevator. But that's my own story. So after I get into the house and I'm putting away all the groceries already, it's very late. My wife is already resting, so I'm also putting away all the groceries, everything. Finally, I walk over into my corner, and I try to spend at least 1 hour a day with God. And I have a room now, but I used to have a corner. And I would go over there and I would talk with God. And the only thing that was going back and forth in my head, I could barely get any words out to God. I kept hearing the rhythm of there is space, there is no space, there is space, there is no space. Is space. And this is going back, yesh makom, ein makom, yesh makom, ein makom, until I start laughing. And then right in that moment, something dawned on me. What dawned on me was that this is the very conversation that you and I are having with God all the time. He is telling us over and over again that there is space. We are telling God over and over again, there is no space. We don't have space for you right now. God is saying there is space. We're saying there's no space. He's saying there is space. Until one time, or many times in our life, God basically has to force himself into our trunk, into our lives, even though we didn't think there was room. Troubles beset us. We fall prey to the many different things that cause sadness or depression or whatever there is in this world that backs us up into a corner to where we have to admit, God, there was space and there was room all along, right? And so the reason why I told you this story, and I love to tell the story a lot of times when I do public speaking, is because it's so relatable to every single person. And this is what's happening in the West. This is what's happening. We have tried to kick God out. And he says, no, not going to happen. So he raises up these group of, Islamists to go in and flood in Western Europe. All of Europe is getting filled up. United States also getting it, but Europe is getting it way worse. And as they fill up, what are they screaming? Allahu Akbar. God is greatest. Now, they may mean something different than when we say it, but as people are falling off, having less kids and being, promiscuous and living lives of homosexuality, falling away into lawlessness and rejecting God, atheism, and as that spreads, you have guys that flood Europe screaming, God is greatest, as they plan, plot, and kill and murder and everything else. I just want you to think about that. You see, when Europe was dealing with its Jew problem, they thought that they had this ant problem, right? As it says, our grasshoppers, whatever the case is, you have this ant problem. And they traded it in for infestation of cockroaches. That's what happened. And this is exactly what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen. The West has to look at it, meaning specifically the United States has to look at what's going on in Europe right now and realize that the problem that they had was that they did not do like Genesis 12:3 said, that I will bless those who bless you and I will curse those who curse you. They didn't realize that. And now the West is falling because of that. Ultimately, rejecting the Jewish people is rejecting godliness. It is, because the two come together. And the reason why I'm saying this, I know this sounds crazy to some people, but I want to tell you that there's a reason why I'm saying this. And I've been clear about this before, but I'll say it to you again. And if you look into biblical prophecy, there isn't a place where God speaks about the future of humanity, of anything that is not revolving around the Jewish people. Israel, the land. The Jewish people, the land of Israel, is the prophetic clock of God. That's how we tell time. That's how we know where we are even in the world. And so once you reject that, as Hitler, may his name be erased, said, once you could get rid of the Jews, you could get rid of moral consciousness. It's gone and it leaves. And that is the problem. Because people have rejected God, ultimately causes them to reject Jews and vice versa. And the society goes down. And as we've been seeing this going on for the left for a very, very long time. But now that it's crept into the right and it is spreading like a wildfire, especially under the youth who are just keep in mind, how do we get here? And I was thinking about this just not too long ago. It's quite ironic because if we'll just say, the claims and allegations of this actual proof, I'm not going to bring it right now. I hate to say things that I'm not going to show you at the moment, but there's for sure proof, and we'll cover it in another podcast, of Qatari money, right, that has been flooding the educational system in the West, particularly in America, United States, from grade school all the way up to college, heavily in the colleges. There ain't only liberals that are going there. There's not only the liberal kids. There's also the right-wing kids. In addition to, watching these groypers and grifters and all these other people who are falling off one by one because there's also some Qatari money over there. So people are being destroyed from within. The West, in particular, is being destroyed from within as a judgment because of what it has done to the Jewish people and what it has done to the God of Israel. And you can reject what I'm saying, and you can bring some other claims. I would love to hear them. Would love to hear them. But we're seeing a diminishing of just complete character and common sense in the African American community because of a lack of religion. That has really almost brought the whole community down to its knees, honestly, because of lack of God. Church used to be the center of Black culture and Black life, and now it's rap music. I remember, rest in peace, speaking a while back with Fat Man Scoop. For those of you who don't know him, he was a Grammy Award-winning artist who, wasn't necessarily always singing about things that I would play. But anyway, not these days at least, not in this incarnation of myself. But I remember talking to him, and regardless of what his music was, he's a very sensible person. Me and Scoop became friends before he passed away. We actually did some music that we never released together. But one of the things he said to me one time when I was talking to him, and I don't know if that interview is still public, but I'd asked him about the evolution of rap music. And I'm using the evolution of rap music just to talk about where we are today, and then we're going to get on to the next part of the podcast. One of the things he said to me, he says he grew up listening to positive rappers, right? Rap started off very positive, contrary to what people believe. And I'm not even going back to the, jubilaries or luminaries, whatever they were. I'm talking about from the time that rap hit in 1979, okay? Started off really about having fun, whatever, positive. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder why, how I keep from going under, right? You start talking about poverty, what's going on in the world, fight the power. You have Public Enemy, and all these other things, Unity by Queen Latifah. I mean, there was this evolution happened until it became this thing where people actually started rapping about committing crime, NWA, right? Gang violence, all these other things. This starts to come out, and then you have the dope boy era of drug music, and then they start rapping about drugs, and then he said, I literally watched the game go from people talking about gangs and being drug dealers to where today they're drug users, and this is what they rap about. And this is what's crazy. If we could watch the evolution, that you can be completely within just a short amount of time, completely on the opposite side of a spectrum of an idea or a thought, right, that you would have held to be evil, that you would have held to be like the absolute wrong way of thinking, that can be the very society that you grow up with, and thinking that these things are okay or even praiseworthy. And that's where we are today. Good has become evil, evil has become good, and unfortunately, if the West does not wake up and see what's going on right now, specifically America, what's going on in Europe, there's judgment that's happening behind not following biblical principles, biblical ideas, Judeo-Christian values that is the foundation of the United States of America, without getting back to God, returning to God, which we're going to be talking about a lot here. Unfortunately, you can count it out already. You can count it out. Moving on. Wait, before you get back to the show, I just want to let you know that we have launched Nissim Black Store. All you have to do is go online, order yourself one of these amazing mugs, God is King, with a matching t-shirt. We have a whole plethora of different shirts that are all about representing God wherever you go. As believers in the one true God of Israel, it is our duty not to hide, not to back down, not to shy away from expressing our faith wherever it is that we go. If you want to go and walk righteously before your God with a nice t-shirt, with a nice sweater, with a mug that's reminding us constantly that God is here with us, go to nissimblack.store and make sure you get yourself some merch. It really helps support this channel and everything that we're doing and everything that we plan to do. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. I thank you all for all of your support. Okay, back to the show. One of the things that makes this conversation so interesting is when we look at how things have changed in a short amount of time. And I'm saying in the grand scheme of things, right? I want to share with you guys, a clip of Barack Obama from 2010. And I want you to see how he speaks about deportation, how much he realizes and how much he is standing up for obeying the law. Obeying what the law actually says. It is completely the opposite of what's been going on in the streets of Minnesota, California, and wherever else, that they have lost all of their nuggets because they are fighting for these illegal immigrants. And I've seen some sad stories, man. I have seen those stories that everybody was trying to avoid. You know, a guy with his, significant other, which was a woman, obviously. And if I'm saying it's sad, at least. And her being deported and him not. And I saw this, just the other day, somebody sent this to me and, as a matter of fact type of thing. And I'm like, well, if he loved her that much, he should have married her. If he's a citizen, she would have became a citizen. Like, I don't understand. I really don't understand. Like, at the end of the day, as bad as I feel, and it's hard to see these things, right? There is a legal way that people can become citizens in the United States. Anyway, I just want you to see this before we go deeper into this. I want you to see what Barack Obama had to say about it.
There are those in the immigrants' rights community who have argued passionately that we should simply provide those who are illegally with legal status, or at least ignore the laws on the books and put an end to deportation until we have better laws. And often this argument is framed in moral terms. Why should we punish people who are just trying to earn a living? I recognize the sense of compassion that drives this argument. But I believe such an indiscriminate approach would be both unwise and unfair.
And he's right. Right? Is he not right? Ladies and gentlemen, is he not right? I mean, is this not what we have been saying? I think if I'm President Trump, I don't speak anymore about this matter. I'm not letting anybody else speak about it. Nobody else is speaking about it. We just going to rerun clips all day long of Barack Obama speaking, because there's plenty like this. This is from 2010. It is only 2026. It's 16 years. And the world has acted like this is some crazy, and that's how you know, ladies and gentlemen, it is just the anti-Trump thing. It has nothing to do. They will find some other reason. So I seen somebody post a clip yesterday, and somebody sent this to me, that it was a brother actually, and he said inside the clip, he says if Trump, he should detain all these people. I don't know if he said all of this, but I'm imagining my own stuff on top of what he said, and tell them to vote Republican, and then see how fast the Democrats want them all out of here. That's the real move, and it's a good suggestion, ladies and gentlemen, and that's how it'll really show itself that at the end of it, it was all just a resistance. This is Trump resistance. It has nothing to do with ICE.
It would suggest to those thinking about coming here illegally that there will be no repercussions for such a decision. And this could lead to a surge in more illegal immigration. And it would also ignore the millions of people around the world who are waiting in line to come here legally. Ultimately, our nation, like all nations, has the right and obligation to control its borders and set laws for residency and citizenship. And no matter how decent they are, no matter their reasons, The 11 million who broke these laws should be held accountable.
I mean, can you say it any clearer than that? Can you say it any clearer than that? And not only should we keep rerunning these clips, but it should be also said to the Western Europe and everybody else, they need to listen to this. Deportation is a must. And I will also say it here in Israel also too. Deportation is a must. Now you say the situation may be different here because, some of these people are maybe indigenous or they've been living here for many years or whatever the case is, but we know where these names come from. You can look them up in Arabic, whatever. This one comes from Egypt, this one from Morocco, this one, we send them somewhere. Send them somewhere else. But you can't be here if you are going to come and cause issues and crimes. And if you're not going to do that, if you're going to be a decent human being, like he said, even in that regard, you still need to obey the law. And there is a way to come to the United States, and there's a way not to come to the United States. And this always will bring me back to this place, misplaced mercy, ladies and gentlemen. That's what some people have. Other people have, like I said, Trump derangement syndrome. And because they hate him so much, they're willing to die on this hill of deportation. But it's okay when it's Obama. It's okay when it's your side. Then that's all right. And this is hypocritical. This is what is destroying anybody who's trying to keep with even a little bit of common sense in this world. And I think there's something deeper and more spiritual that is driving this. I want to show you a clip right now that is just crazy. It is a crazy clip. And I'm just like, I'm still thinking about it. Like, this can't be real. This cannot be true. But when I start to think about it, I mean, it can be. This is 2026. We've been seeing crazy things. I'm not even going to tell you what it is. I'm going to just let you watch it so you could be just as baffled as I was.
This is Representative P.M. Altendorf coming live at you from the Minnesota State Capitol. I am on the ground floor, and as I was leaving my committee meeting today here earlier, I noticed that there is a new display here at the state capitol, and it's for Governor Walz. It's right here on display. So let me see. I mean, I guess I can't flip my phone, but I'll see if I can show it to you. So this is what we have here, everyone. Let me read it to you. The Democratic Coalition of Satan Worshipers thanks Governor Tim Walz for not standing in the way of spreading Satanism in the state capitol building. Satan has a special place for you. That's right, everyone. So the Democratic Coalition of Satan Worshipers.
You can't say that that's not funny. Satan has a special place for you. This got to be a prank. I'm just like, this has to be a prank. Somebody must have just put that up there. I can't believe that this is true. I mean, I would, if it's not, somebody please spam me in the comments and let me know that this was a joke. I just have to know that this was a joke.
Some sort of plaque here to Governor Tim Walz. So let me be the first, I guess, to congratulate Governor Tim Walz for this very special award that has come from the Satan worshipers here in the Minnesota State Capitol. Yes, everyone, this is true. I am live, not making this up. You can't make this up. I don't know what else to say. I would think if you're Governor Tim Walz, you could choose not to have up this plaque. I don't know why a governor of a state would want this plaque, but there it is. Let me show you. Here we are, live at the state capitol, and the Satan worshipers have thanked Governor Tim Walz. And let me repeat this, the last line says, Satan has a special place for you. I'm speechless.
I can't help that last line. Listen, guys, I'm so sorry. I'm going to be straight. This is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. I mean, if that isn't virtue signaling to the highest, or maybe he's one of them. And what I guess what I would say about this is that there's been no sparing from the Satanists in terms of them showing who they are. I'm saying with all of the music and the movies and these concerts of these people literally doing rituals, witches on TikTok and all this other stuff that's been going on. You know, before years ago, people would say that this was all like just some made up stuff. These are just some conspiracies or something else that's going on, but it's real. And as time has gone on, they have been coming out and speaking more about it, that this is an actual real thing. There are serious people who have given themselves over to Satan. They have sold themselves over to it. Now, we used to think of this as just like, okay, you sign a big contract, you enter into the dark side, you give yourself over to that, the world of entertainment, Hollywood, music, whatever the case is. But no, it was real, ladies and gentlemen. And the reason why I'm connecting these two is because there is something very, very demonic about these protests. And I've been thinking about it. Like, to give up your life for this, I mean, this is what you would give up your life for? And I'm talking about there are multiple people putting themselves in the line of fire to save illegal immigrants that broke the law already by coming here, right? People that seem to be normal, but they will be willing to do that in the way that they're doing it. And I've showed you some of the clips here. I mean, I'm going to spare myself today because it's a lot for me to look at. I really am a sensitive person. I still am very sensitive to these things. I don't like seeing fighting. I don't like seeing people get. I don't like seeing people unalived on anything. So or fight. I just don't like it. So I'm going to spare myself, if not you. But there's so much of this going on. And there has to be some demonic force because it ain't godly. If anything, that's the opposite. I mean, these people, Don Lemon and these clowns, they stormed into a church. I think the guy was mid-sermon and they stormed into the church. There are crazy people who call themselves religious people who are trying to get other religious people to stand up and fight against ICE agents who are getting illegal immigrants out of the country. I mean, just think about that. I want you to put those two together. It's a demonic thing. It's a demonic behavior. It is absolute evil that is driving them, that it takes over them in such a way that it is forceful. You see these people, they're angry, they're upset, they are, on talking about people and all these other stuff like that. And the left has been violent, but it's demonic. You have this mixed with, this gender dysphoria, all of this nonsense that's going on. Everything they've been shoving down everybody's throats. And at the end of the day, you can pull back the mask off it and you see it's just pure Satanism, demonic forces, and people that are giving themselves over to evil. And they have loved it. They have enjoyed it. And I don't know what Tim Wall's situation is or whatever. Maybe he's from the Satanists. It doesn't say it on there. So maybe he just has been very helpful in them spreading their things. I mean, he's also behind and involved in the, demonic fraud that's been happening amongst the Somalian population over there. I mean, the guy just not winning anywhere. I mean, above all things, probably the worst thing he ever did was that he ran on a ticket with Kamala Harris. If that ain't demonic. I'm just saying, people who are taking these things lightly, we should stop. We really have to stop looking at things as if there's not a spiritual thing. Now, Christians are very used to this type of language. In Judaism, we talked about this a lot in previous years, but today we almost never talk about demonic and evil dark forces. A lot of the Hasidic works actually talk about this, talk about having a spirit of holiness rather than a spirit of darkness. Right. And these things, these forces are klipas, as we will understand them in more of the esoteric speech of these forces, these peelings that are covering up God's light. And that's what's happening. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, I say unfortunate too much, but this is unfortunate things happening. Right. There's only one healing for this. That's God Almighty. God Almighty. So, Senator Tim Walz, I don't know what else to tell you, but I can tell you for sure that I am convinced that Satan has a special place for you. Moving on. Hey, wait 1 second. I want to tell you about something really unique I was invited to be a part of. It's called the Dream Raffle, and the grand prize is a fully furnished $1.2 million apartment in Jerusalem. It's not a timeshare, not a discount, an actual move-in ready home in one of the most meaningful cities on earth. You're entering a raffle, so it's a chance to win. But here's what matters to me. This isn't just about the prize. The raffle is run by a nonprofit, and every single ticket supports real causes in Israel: emergency responders, families in need, widows and orphans, soldiers, and community programs. So whether you win or not, your participation is doing real good in the world. They also have bonus prizes for early entries, including cash giveaways. If this speaks to you, the dream, the mission, or both, check it out at thedreamraffle.com/Nissim. That's thedreamraffle.com/Nissim. Okay, back to the show. Okay, before we begin this segment on Candace Owens, I really want to address those who have been asking me. Right? They have been saying to me, why do you keep talking about Candace? I want to address all of you. I've said sometimes in the comments what my reasons was, but I just want to say it flat out here, and I'm going to address all of you, right? Why do you cover so much Candace? Why does she keep coming up? You're doing this for the clicks, or you're doing this for the views. You're doing this for some other ulterior motive. Why do you keep why do you keep talking about her? The more power you give her, they're saying, the bigger she's going to get. And all these other things that everybody's been saying. Now, I want to address all of them, all of this. And I'm going to address it first with a few different answers. One, I'll start with my most selfish of all the answers, right? All the selfishness, I want to hurry up and get that out of the way because I could possibly be selfish. Yes, it is possible, and I'll admit it. And no, it's not about the money. It's not about the clicks. It's not about any of that, ladies and gentlemen. Anyone could go back. I remember I did the first podcast that I did on Candace Owens when I was revealing, what I believe to be her religious motivations behind what it is that she's doing. You can go and check that. I think it's called The Fall of Candace Owens or something like that. And I followed up with that from that video, that particular podcast, saying that I did not want to talk about her anymore. And then I had rethought. I thought about it. I felt very compelled, seeing as how so many people were willing to listen and how many people were writing inside of the comments. How many people were saying that, oh my goodness, I never even thought about that. Wow, how come I didn't know that? I feel so duped. And I felt, there was so many people or so much positive feedback from that I started to realize, like, hold on, this is no longer just about, me expressing myself or just feeling like, okay, I said what I had to say, then I can walk on now. It's a responsibility. So you could look at it one way. You could be the person who says, oh, you're just chasing the clicks and you're chasing the money and all these other things. But for me, I'm looking at the opportunity. If people are listening and I can pull people away from nonsense and from a person that is a grifter, then I should do it. And it is a responsibility to do it. That's only one answer, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot tell you the amount of comments that I've seen that people said that they just didn't know. They were sold. They were on Team Candace and all these other things. And they all started to defect one by one. So in that regard, as I said, it's a responsibility. But that's not the first real selfish issue that I had, or my first real selfish reason. It's even more selfish than that. And that's actually a good reason, by the way. The selfish reason is because I've gotten into so many arguments with people over the years defending Candace Owens in my life. Now, that's way before she got with this crazy stuff. I'm talking about the conservative, before Daily Wire Candace Owens. I got into so many arguments defending this woman and her views and all the consumption of her views, her things that she was putting out online and different things at that time. I felt almost overly compelled, selfishly, albeit selfishly, to oppose all of this nonsense and rhetoric since it has come out and as she has changed. And I felt, because of my own personal embarrassment, right, that I needed to start saying something. And I'm not going to lie. But even thinking that she was articulate and a well-meaning human being, at least she presented herself as that. I'm not so sure that that was the case. And so because of that, I do feel some personal, probably selfish reason that I'm, at least not afraid to admit. I'm embarrassed, but I'm not afraid to admit that, it's one of the reasons that make me want to speak about her. And I would say another reason of mine, and I wouldn't say is a selfish reason, it's more collective, is that I am Jewish. And I was not born this way, ladies and gentlemen. I came from a completely different world. I converted to Judaism many years ago, and I'm trying to speak. I'm going to try to say this at least from a person who is from the outside. Although I never felt that way. I've been on this journey altogether for more than 20 years now, or nearly 20 years. And I have never met a people, and this is even me saying this now, as far right-wing as I am, I'm going to tell you, even by liberal lefty Jews, it doesn't matter how you slice them. I have never experienced love like this before in my life. I have never known a loving, compassionate people like this. The amount of care and love that they have for one another that was done for me. Not knowing where I came from, didn't know my background. There were many people who did not know me. And this is contrary to some reports you may find in the news of racial discrimination and all these other things I was experiencing by a small, less than a fraction of people, small amount of people at one particular period in my life. That was not the overall, and it doesn't even shadow at all the amount of love and acceptance that I've never felt it before. And I've heard that from many Jews of color, whether they were born Jewish or whether they converted. And yes, there are Jews of color that were born Jewish, just for those who did not know. And so the amount of, offense that I've taken or that I get when I hear people speak about Jews, after a while, I just couldn't take it anymore. And she has been one of the main ones in the limelight. And I know that Nick Fuentes is probably a little bit more nuanced, a little more, versed in his anti-Semitism, in some ways, at least. In some ways, he's actually not. And I'm not saying he's not an anti-Semite, don't get me wrong. I'm saying in some ways, he's a little bit more bearable. Not that I'm giving him any compliments, God forbid. But I honestly would say this, between the two, and I want to talk about this. We're going to get into something crazy right now. I'm just going to say something that's crazy. I bet that between the two of these two people, Candace Owens and we'll say Nick Fuentes, because we know he's a big anti-Semite. I say, give me 48 hours with Nick Fuentes. And I'd take him for Shabbat at my house, at a home-cooked Shabbat meal, full 48-hour experience. I need Shabbat itself the day of, and then I need the day after, right? You give me that with a Nick Fuentes and my Black Jewish home with my Black Jewish wife and Black Jewish children. Yes. And I guarantee you, and I know he'd probably be bugging out after that. Like Jews are Black people. But anyway, I'm telling you, I think that I would change his mind. I think that I would change his mind. I think the experience in itself would change his mind once he sees and experiences how Jews are together. Candace, on the other hand, I think that she is completely rotten from her core, unfortunately. She would sit down with Erica Kirk, probably didn't have the most pleasant and awesome conversation, and came back and just doubled down on all of the nonsense and conspiracies that she did. It goes to show. And not only that, she has almost completely destroyed almost every public relationship that she had, except for with a few choice people. That she doesn't even mention those few choice people in public, so you don't really know what those relationships are either. So we see that she's a person who doubles down on the lies, whereas we're opposed to an anti-Semite like Nick Fuentes. I don't know. Something tells me a proper Jewish experience and him seeing us for our essence and who we really are will be a completely different thing. Not arguing for him. But the other issue is, as far as Candace Owens goes, well, we are now fighting and duking this out in the court of public opinions. And for all of you people who've been saying, oh, well, Candace is, the more you talk about her, the more she's going to get bigger, which is actually not true. We're seeing that the wool is coming off, numbers is going down, plummeting. We've seen all of this already. So that's not true. And that's with more people speaking about her, not less. So I don't agree with that. Although I understand where you're coming from, I just don't agree with it. The data is showing the opposite of that. But even to you, I would say this, and I've spoke about this either before or maybe I wrote a comment, I can't remember, that even if somebody brings a case against you and they're taking it to court, okay, and they take this case, and although you are right, you don't say anything about it, they can win a default judgment. Unfortunately, I'm just learning this. But they can win a default judgment. So we are in the court of public opinion right now with Candace Owens. We are in the court of public opinion. She cannot go unchecked because there are stragglers and those people who, for whatever reason, can't see this for themselves. They will see where Candace is coming from and they will go to that side. And that we don't want. So if you don't want to hear anything about Candace or any of those, whenever those videos come up, I'm trying my best to cover her less just for my own mental health. I really, really am. But if you don't care for any of those, don't click those ones. Just really don't. I talk about plenty of other things. Even some of the things about Candace are just, I don't know, teams sometimes put a face on stuff and I'm talking about other things. But anyway, that's why we're talking about her. Now, Milk Bar shared a clip of her. Now, this, truthfully, I'm going to be honest, this clip could be done on anybody. I know I make some mistakes sometimes too. But when it's a person like her who thinks she's on top of the world, Mrs. Arrogant, Mrs., number one, I'm number one, all these other things, with her, it's just much more funny. I just find it to be hilarious. Check it out. Bro, clip 4.
Followers, and you think, okay, this is an illiterate person. Kind of read books. I'm just fascinated with learning real history because I think that truth is kind of, what actually has happened, the events of our world, is obviously, as the expression goes, way stranger in fiction. To do it again posthumously, Charlie Kirk, the founder of TPUSA, will be posthumously honored a posthumous award. They've decided posthumously, cordially accepted those posthumous terms. SCIF. Which stands for a sensitive, compartmented, if you can't compartmentalize, and a CEO and a chairman has to compartmentalize. The IDF even dropped napalm 12.5 miles off the coast of the Sinai Peninsula.
She just be making up words. Oh my goodness. Somebody, and it's wrong. At this point, somebody's producing these shows and they are just not checking to see if she's familiar with any of these words before she's saying them. It's not fair. Not fair, guys.
Is that correct when you arrive into the Sinai Peninsula?
Sinai.
Illiterate person in Portland, Oregon. The Hamptons debacle came out. The Hamptons, okay? Remember that whole debacle? We knew a kerfluffle happened as this dress kerfluffle causes this whole race kerfluffle. Ways that you can honor Charlie. Stop telling us that it has to always be Miss Macabre, retired Green Beret, allegedly a heart attack. Normal passion, not this chat GBT. At last I checked, everybody uses the terminology blitz. Blitzkrieg. Everybody uses the term blitzkrieg. And so I called it Blitzkrieg Week. You can't even say blitz means lightning. Krieg means war. And the NFL football team say blitzkrieg. God, no, he just liked the architecture. Smells in the bells, he loved the architecture. It was about the architecture. He loves the architecture. I think this may have been about more than the architecture. Jewish people were in control of the slave trade. They've buried a lot of it. Buried the Charlie Kirk story. What about his burial? How come we haven't seen anything about his burial? Alex Jones was just burying himself. And Alex Jones jumped into the foray. Mock me and Tucker Carlson. It's always got to be Tucker Carlson, camera Owens. And of course, the world is quite literally a stage. By the way, I always wonder where that expression comes from. Can you look it up, Skylar? The world is a stage. Where is that from? I actually don't know where that's from originally. That would be interesting to see. Totally like insane Alice in Wonderland. And then like all of a sudden there's like a Cheshire cat who's like smoking.
Night by Elie Wiesel.
Night by Eli Wiesel. Mentioning Elie Wiesel. Elie Wiesel. Oh, it's Shakespearean. All the world's a stage. Interesting. Very interesting.
Do you have a favorite book?
I read a lot. I don't know if I have a favorite book. Oh.
Nothing favorite? All right, I'll take it.
Because that's what she is. She's illiterate.
Shout out to Milk Bar, Nate Livingstone. So there are a few different issues here, and I'm going to cover this overall today. I'm not going to go into every single detail with her today, but there is something very interesting that he shared on X, and something that I have been talking about. And it's bigger. All of this, again, is bigger than this woman, and we're going to talk about why it's bigger than her. But I want to bring you over here to X. Now, when you look over here, you are going to see something that I've been asking, and I'm sure many of us have been asking. The question is, didn't she just say about 2 months ago that she was, there was a murder plot against her or something like that, an assassination plot that they were going to do? And it's just one of those things where you're just completely obsessed with yourself. So anyway, Milk Bar TV, shout out to him. He said 2 months ago, Candace Owens claimed that the Macrons paid $1.5 million to have her assassinated. This also included included Israel. They are joint state operations. What came of this? First of all, where did Candace supposedly get this information? She claims she was contacted by a high-ranking employee of the French government who had provided concrete proof that they are well placed within the French government apparatus. So this contract was apparently to be carried out by the national, I think it says Gendarmerie Sikh Intervention Group. I'm over here sounding like Candace myself. So anyway, including, and that's like I said, it's just not a hit on her, just on everybody. You know, I used to say axe. How many black people said axe? That was one of the most valuable lessons I got since I had moved into the Jewish community. They told me to say ask. It's the axe, run around axing people. Anyway, let me get back to this. Okay, so it says, including one Israeli on the assassination squad, clarifying, I would like to stress that there was a French female assassin, but also a male Israeli assassin that were selected to kill me. And if you thought this was outlandish, Candace had all the receipts. I have the evidence to prove my claim. I even have names. And she was willing to provide the details as well as the name of the assassins and international accounts in French and Canada, France and Canada, through which the money was exchanged. But she also, counting on her mummy sleuths, she says, in France to come through with evidence, giving them a hot tip that payments for assassins are running through the Club Descent in France. This means there's a paper trail, and I encourage the patriots of France to do what you can to uncover it. So Candace pleading with the world for help, or to help her, an absolute emergency posting. This is deadly serious, she had said. He's just quoting her over here. And I ask that every person retweet and share this. So some people did. And this is what's funny. Some people did retweet this. In fact, these claims, seriously, all of them were retweeted by Candace's fan. Okay, so you had at Glenn Flynn posted, there's plenty of truth to these claims. Okay, then you had at DC Drano, that person says, if this is verified, how is this not an act of war? Okay, and then you had Durov, at Durov, I find Candace info about French involvement in his death entirely plausible. So Candace retweeted a post by Evan Kilgore that said, at the Officer Tatum now says he has seen the evidence regarding the assassination threat on Candace Owens. The post included a video by the Officer Tatum saying, I am convinced after talking with Candace, I am convinced. And many people covered that. I covered that. And he spoke out about what he was trying to say when he said that. But what's interesting about that, even though they wrote that, I didn't see that tweet. The Officer Tatum later clarified and said, in fact, she had not provided him any evidence. Now, I don't remember him saying he had any evidence. I remember him saying that he was convinced by her, but at the end of that same video, he said, I don't have the evidence. Okay, so Candace followed up with an update. Both the White House and the counterterrorism agencies confirmed the receipt of what I reported publicly. Emmanuel Macron attempted to organize my assassination, per a source told to the first couple. So in the middle of the update, she reiterated with certainty that the French legionnaires, definitely played a part in Charlie Kirk's death. The French legionnaires were involved in Charlie Kirk's assassination. And to all of the doubters, for all of you who doubted my claims, she is dropping a mic over here as if she's presenting some evidence. This is classic her, by the way, classic Candace. For all of you who doubted my claims, you can now look to the President of the United States and our intelligence communities to issue a statement to confirm whether I am telling the truth. No reported public statement from the White House or U.S. intelligence corroborating her allegation followed. It never happened. Never came out. Candace came back on air the following week and clarified she had not made an official complaint to the FBI. Oh my goodness. She said, I did not go through an official channel and send an email. I should do that, but I sent a text message to somebody. God, you can't make it up. Come on, man. Candace hasn't confirmed whether she didn't actually follow up with the official report. It never came back up because she stopped talking about it, right? There were many who reported that they actually seen her at some, Dollyland or something like that, but one security guard. After all of this, that's what they said. So, in fact, no receipts ended up being provided by Candace, French mummy sleuths, and anyone else to verify any part of these claims. Zero court injunctions were made by Candace's legal team against the Macrons in their court case against her. If the people suing you in court were trying to kill you, you'd think the judge should probably know, and it would impact their case. She made an appearance on Piers Morgan several weeks later and didn't appear to even mention the assassination plot against her. Now, she had the opportunity to, and this is big because if you have the opportunity, I think Piers Morgan, he's up there with one of the top shows for sure that's being watched, right? People just love that controversy that he puts out there. So he's got one of the top shows. How do you have that platform and that opportunity and you not tell the world, but you're telling everybody to retweet it? But you don't feel that it's important enough for you to mention it on the Piers Morgan show. Okay, whatever. Anyway, I'm gonna keep reading. So he says, aside from the brief mention in the early December on her show, Candace hasn't appeared to have mentioned the assassination plot since. Hasn't come up again. And this is for all you people that are following her. It hasn't come up again. Are you not yet seeing the pattern? Following her sit down with Erica Kirk, Candace has largely focused on conspiracy surrounding Fort Huachuca and the U.S. military and TPUSA, plus Erica Kirk's early acting career, and the latest in the Blake Lively Justin Baldoni court case. And not in this joint state operations to have her assassinated that the U.S. government is ignoring. Like, none of this is coming up. People, listen, if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. And he says, and the internet, too, has moved on, largely forgetting what appears to be nothing more than an elaborate hoax. And that's all it is, and that's all she ever wrote. And this should be striking for all of us, to be honest. It should be striking for all of us that she has moved on. And the reason why it's striking for us, not because we're believing it, obviously. If you're here, you don't believe in that junk. I just, the overwhelming majority of you don't. But it should be striking because there are people that are listening to this. And it goes, like, I keep drilling this point because I think it's very important. I think it's important for us to really realize the fight that we're up against in a society where we share air with people that believe Candace Owens to be a credible source. That is very, very telling about where we are. And I want to tell you, you know what the real problem is with Candace Owens and all these other conservative personalities right now. It's not that they're just wrong on a few issues. It's not that they have said something silly or stupid on X. The problem is that they don't know God. And I don't mean that they don't talk about God, because there's some of them that do talk about God. And they may even talk about him constantly. I mean that they don't know him. They're not in a relationship with him. They're not spending time with him. And that is why they can lead millions of people astray, quoting scripture, because knowing about God and knowing God are two completely different things. And here's what this is at least what I need you to understand. Either the Bible is the word of God or it's not. There is no middle ground. It's the word of God, and you believe that it is, or it's not, and so you don't believe it is, and so your life will be adjusted accordingly to that. But if it is the word of God, which I believe it is, then it's God speaking. It's not suggestions. It's not him offering his opinions. That's him speaking. That means every word matters. That means that every word counts. Every promise counts. Every covenant stands. And when you actually spend time with God, and when you're praying, and when you're spinning and reading what it is that he said, then you are allowing his spirit to work on your spirit. You don't stay the same after that, and you cannot stay the same. Your heart starts shifting. You start caring about what he cares about. Your love becomes his love. That's what happens in any relationship. If you take two good friends and they're spending a lot of time together, you will know a person that knows them, don't know that they know each other, knows them mutually exclusive, one from another. And he says, you really remind me of this other person. Well, they spend a lot of time together. Today, I think it's even scientifically been proven. I've talked about this in my public speeches, that you can have two people start looking alike. And some people are starting to look like their pets, or their dogs starting to look like them from spending so much time, right? That's what happens in a relationship. If you spend time with God, you become more godly, and you start to love what he loves. You accept what he accepts. You disdain what he disdains. You don't get to pick and choose what parts of God you like. You don't get to edit him to fit your comfort zone or your political brand like most of these grifters do. That's what Candace and all these people do. They're not real. They are fake. They are phony. So stop giving any credence to these people. Stop listening to them. Don't look their way. And God himself was very clear, by the way, to everybody about what it was that he loved and who he loves. From the beginning of the Bible to the end of the Bible, whichever Bible you're reading. One thing that is a common characteristic that you will see all throughout is God is committed to Israel. He's committed to the Jewish people. He is committed to the covenant that he made with them, the covenant that he made with Abraham. It wasn't a phase one plan. It wasn't a rough draft. It was an eternal, unbreakable commitment. He chose Abraham. He gave his Torah to Moses. He made a covenant with David. And those covenants do not expire. God doesn't break his word. He doesn't change his mind. No matter who shows up late to the party, it doesn't matter. The Bible is absolutely drowning in the promises that God made to Israel. The restoration, the return, the redemption, vindication. As long as the sun and the moon endure, God said, so will Israel endure as a nation before me. God has not rejected his people from whom he foreknew, the Bible says. And nothing about that is vague. It's not symbolism. It's not some symbolic thing that God was saying that it was be for a time. This is God speaking. So when someone tells me they love God, they fear God, or that they follow the Bible, and then they turn around and trash Israel, which I'm very confused on why Nathan did not do the 100, because probably he would have had ran out of footage if he would have showed how many times she said Israel. Like, what is Israel? Right? Sorry if I digress. I just can't go. That clip was too funny. But if somebody tells you that they love God, right, and then they trash Israel, they love the God of the Bible at least, or they, wear cookie shirts and they minimize Jewish suffering, if they promote replacement theology, supersessionism, or if they excuse anti-Semitism, it's just, they are telling you something. They're telling me something very clearly, that they don't know him. But you cannot truly know God and hate that which he says he loves over and over and over again. God says it over and over again. It's impossible at that point. If you are spending real time with God, if you are in his word, if you are praying, if you are letting him speak to your heart, then you will start caring about what he cares about. God was very revealed about what he cared about. That's not a theological concept as much as it is showing of the relationship, showing the way that God was and the way that he moves. That's a like, it's beyond theology at that point. It's a fingerprint of God. So when you love someone and you care about what matters to that person, then you yourself would also protect what it is that they protect. You would honor what they honor. So when all of these grifters start to dismiss Israel, because that's what it all comes back to. It's the Israeli agent. He did it, whatever the case is. When they peddle all this replacement theology, when they say that the church has replaced the Jews, any of that nonsense, they are showing you that they have never met the God of the Bible. I don't understand how you could keep looking at a document and how many times God keeps saying how much he will never give up. He will never abandon. He will never change his covenant. Even the earth and heaven will pass away. All these. How do you read that as many times as it's in there? Like the Bible is lit up with this and still come to a different conclusion. There is no other conclusion except for you don't know the God that you are reading of his book. You don't. And that's why these people are dangerous. This is why these people have to keep being talked about. I'm trying to offer you some discernment on a platter on how to easily be able to identify what the issues are with these people. Forget all the nonsense and the Erica stuff that she's talking. I'm not saying specifically to Erica. I'm saying just, I don't even want to go into the issue so much. I'm so beyond that today. I want to get to the point of why we are covering this lady and all of the other, usually unusual suspects that we talk about here on this channel. Unfortunately, they've dominated too much of our speech. But this is the main reason why. They have created, and if they have met God, they met a version of God that they built themselves. The God of the Bible is not the one. A God who agrees with their politics. And many people are guilty of this. Creating a God in their own image. A God who fits their audience. A God who never challenges them. When your God is all about convenience, that is no longer faith. I don't care what you call it. And millions of people have been following these people, these grifters, these non-factors have become factors. And it's part of it is because they sound so confident. They sound like they're conservative. They start quoting scriptures. They hide behind, versions of Christianity that even they made up. And you can fake a lot of things. You can fake conservative values. You can fake patriotism. You can fake, just outrage, so that you can gain some engagement. One thing you cannot fake is knowing God, right? You either know somebody or you don't. You can't fake it. And if you truly know God, if you truly have spent time with them, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking to all of you, please listen to me. If you have at least wrestled a little bit with his word, if you have at any point in your life allowed for him to transform you, then you will recognize his fingerprints. And his fingerprints are all over Israel, all over the Jewish people. So when somebody is constantly rewriting narratives that you know are anti-biblical, don't listen to them. It's not the fingerprint of God. I appreciate you. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure you either download, make sure you listen in your car, make sure you listen in your AirPods, wherever you listen to things. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and stay engaged with us. Stay engaged with us. Comment. Let me know what your thoughts are. And always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to serve God, but to live trying. I'm out.